asylum seekers. Kevin Rudd calls on Indonesia to stop a boat headed for Australia.
He's lost control of our borders.
Wild weather, tens of thousands in Brisbane without power tonight. Horsing around, the Little Cup, good fun or bad taste?
Oh, well, I want to do anything that's degrading towards myself or dwarves in general.
And man in tights, Russell Crowe follows in the footsteps of Errol Flynn.
This is Nine's Late News with Wendy Kingston.
Good evening. Malcolm Turnbull is calling for an inquiry into the Rudd government's policy on asylum seekers, claiming the Prime Minister has lost control of our borders. It comes after the Prime Minister revealed he'd asked Indonesia's President to intercept a boat headed for Australian waters. And while that boat was stopped, our Navy picked up another vessel headed for Ashmore Island off the West Australian coast.
10110.
The border protection problem. It's now so acute, Prime Minister Rudd phoned Indonesia's President Yudhoyono last weekend to have his Navy stop 260 illegal arrivals from reaching Australian waters.
I make no apology whatsoever for working as closely as I need with our Indonesian friends and partners to get the results we all need in terms of illegal immigration.
He's lost control of our borders.
Had the Sri Lankan asylum seekers reached our waters, they would have stretched the giant new Christmas Island detention centre beyond its capacity of 1,200. Yet, with one boat turned back, another has made it almost to Ashmore Island. 56 passengers, 2 crew, met by the Navy patrol boat HMAS Albany. In the last 14 months, 41 boats have done the same, bringing almost 2,000 asylum seekers. The opposition calling for an independent inquiry to examine whether the Rudd government's border policy changes have caused the surge. The Prime Minister insists foreign or push factors are to blame.
There has been recently a very large and brutally fought civil war in Sri Lanka.
But former Immigration Minister Philip Ruddock dismisses that as peddling a lie. He warns Australia could be exposed to up to 10,000 illegal arrivals each year. Mr Ruddock's intervention has angered the Prime Minister, who says the former minister has no right to comment after his role in the infamous Children Overboard scandal.
In one fell swoop, he destroyed his credibility to make comments on this issue.
Tim Lester, 9 News.
Emergency services and residents are still cleaning up after severe storms lashed southeast Queensland this afternoon. Lightning strikes cut power to more than 37,000 homes and businesses. Many are tonight still in the dark, while wind gusts of up to 100 kilometres an hour brought trees down on power lines and on cars. Earlier, hail pummeled Toowoomba and parts of Brisbane. This morning, the third dust storm in a month coated the west of the state. The statewide fire ban comes into effect at midnight, with strong winds and high temperatures predicted for tomorrow. The jury in the trial over the cruise ship death of Diane Brimble will resume its deliberations tomorrow. 37-year-old Mark Wilhelm is facing a charge of manslaughter and supplying the mother of 3 with a drug fantasy. Before the jury retired today, Wilhelm's lawyer insisted his client didn't force the drug on her.
It's been a 7-year quest to discover the truth behind Diane Brimble's death. Today, the legal team for the man charged with her manslaughter said the truth was very simple. Mark Wilhelm's lawyer said Ms Brimble was a free-thinking adult who took the drug GHB, also known as fantasy, of her own volition. This is not a case where the facts were that it was put in a glass by whoever and that she just drank it from the glass, glug, glug, glug. The position of the accused was that it was consumed by her in a measured way with a cap. The court has heard the mother of 3 probably died from a toxic combination of alcohol and fantasy, sometime after having sex with Wilhelm on board the Pacific Sky in 2002. But Mr Thomas said Wilhelm was not a chemist and could not have known how badly the drug would affect her. What did he know? Well, he didn't know that Diane Brimble had a breathing problem. He knew that she had been drinking and that she had consumed ecstasy before. The remarks came a day after the Brimble case took a drastic turn. Prosecutors suddenly withdrew the allegation that Wilhelm caused Mrs Brimble's death by not helping her after she fell unconscious.
That now leaves the jury to consider just one thing, whether Wilhelm killed Miss Brimble by giving her the fantasy, knowing it could be deadly to do so. Jessica Rich, 9 News.
A father in Western Australia has been sentenced to 3 years jail for bashing his 3-month-old baby son. In a Perth District Court, Jonathan Stephen Lowe pleaded guilty today to causing grievous bodily harm. The abuse was inflicted over the course of a month and left the baby with 38 fractures. Despite today's plea, the child's mother was still standing by her partner.
How's your son going? Can you say how he's doing at the moment?
My son's fine. He was fine. He seemed fine when this all happened.
Lowe must serve 18 months of his sentence before being eligible for parole. A judge has slammed South Australian Police for allowing a senior officer to stay in the force until retirement, despite admitting to the sexual assault of 2 girls in the 1980s. Former Chief Inspector Graham Fraser was jailed today for at least 6.5 years.
Graham Fraser stole the innocence he was supposed to guard. He enjoyed an illustrious career and was a chief inspector when he committed the abuse in the early 80s. His victims were 9 and 14. Today they watched as the 68-year-old was sentenced for 7 counts of indecent assault. Judge Smith was scathing. From any position, this offending was loathsome, he said. These girls had no one to turn to. They were entitled to your protection and care. Instead, you exploited them. The victims reported the abuse in 1986. Fraser admitted guilt but wasn't charged because of the statute of limitations. Instead, police demoted him to a lower rank and allowed him to stay in the force for 13 more years. The judge condemning police for letting him serve until retirement. A demotion of 1 rank would appear to be an astonishingly inadequate penalty. The current Commissioner Mal Hyde agrees, saying if the case arose now, Fraser would have been dismissed. The investigation was reopened in 2007 after new laws allowed Fraser to be brought to justice. He pleaded guilty and apologised, but despite poor health, the judge said jail was the only option. Fraser was sentenced to a non-parole period of 6.5 years, meaning he'll be 74 before he can apply for freedom. Jennifer Ashcroft, 9 News.
Another 2 Australian soldiers have been wounded in Afghanistan. The troops were hit by a roadside bomb in the country's south, but their injuries aren't life-threatening. They've been treated at a military hospital in Tarin Kowt. An Afghan soldier was badly wounded in the same blast and was evacuated to a coalition medical facility. Well, when it comes to deciding what is and what isn't politically correct, it's often a very fine line. So it's not surprising a stunt involving dwarfs dressing up as jockeys has sparked a debate. Critics say it was downright offensive, but one of the dwarfs who took part says it was all just good fun.
Is it in good fun or bad taste? On one side of the debate, the Premier.
What occurred may well be humorous to many people, but I think the test is whether it's hurtful to people, and what occurred is quite hurtful to a number of people, and so I think it's tacky.
But arguing that this is harmless fun, Jeremy Hallam, one of the jockeys seen here.
That was the first time I've actually seen the footage, so actually I think it turned out quite well.
Official Spring Carnival spruiker Tommy Little, organiser of the Little Cup for Racing Victoria, says he tried to ensure no one who took part in the stunt at Sunday's Cranbourne races had an issue with it.
The last thing I would want is for people to think this is offensive or to be offended by it, and so I tried to make sure that that wasn't the case.
Jeremy, a professional entertainer infamously sacked over this incident at a St Kilda bar last year, says this was just another paid gig.
We were all dressed up as characters, as jockeys, so we were acting out as just mini jockeys just for a bit of fun. I don't want to do anything that's degrading towards myself or dwarves in general.
Racing Victoria has offered an apology to anyone who was offended by the stunt, although it says so far it's received no complaints over it. And Jeremy has a message to those who think these images are worthy of complaint.
I mean, we were happy with it, so deal with it.
I don't think anyone will remember the Cranbourne Cup, but I think a lot of people will remember the Little Cup.
Of that, there's no debate. Brett McLeod, 9 News.
SeaWorld has called for shark nets to be removed from Gold Coast beaches after another whale became tangled today, the 5th in as many weeks. Activists say the nets could be withdrawn from the water during the migration season, but others say that would put swimmers at risk.
An agitated juvenile netting wrapped firmly around its tail, now an all too frequent attraction on the Gold Coast.
We've watched this on the television a couple of times and now we're seeing it happen right here.
During a break on their journey south, 2 adults and a calf swam close to the Burleigh shore and a dangerous trap.
Yeah, it looks like it might be in a little bit of trouble out there.
Now routine procedure, rescue teams rushed to lend a hand.
Hopefully, fingers crossed, you'll get them out.
As they sliced and tugged at the nets, Mum kept a watchful eye on her calf.
There were a number of other animals around with it. Its mum was with it and she was very supportive.
After an hour and still no success, the calf grew impatient.
We did it to duck and weave several times.
Then with a final tug and a heartfelt splash, the ocean was once again its oyster.
Fantastic, it's quite euphoric.
There have now been 5 whale rescues already this migration season. They've all been juveniles, too inexperienced to detect acoustic alarms on shark nets.
Still, DPI says the nets are here to stay, wasting no time replacing the strip at Burleigh Heads. Sylvia Jeffries, 9 News.
And there was action of a more threatening kind off Perth. 2 great white sharks feasted on a whale carcass within 200 metres of the popular Floriette swimming beach. Initially, it was thought there was just one, about 4 metres long, but then water police discovered it wasn't alone and the beach was quickly closed. Experts say shark numbers have been increasing with the northerly whale migration.
I notice a pattern. It seems to start in September, early October down in Geograph Bay, and then we hear of incidents, Bunbury, then Mandurah, and then Perth. So by about now you expect people to be seeing them in Perth.
9 years ago, swimmer Ken Crew was attacked and killed by a great white at Cottesloe Beach. In 1938, Australian actor Errol Flynn made the role of Robin Hood all his own. Just over 70 years later, and Russell Crowe has pulled on the tights to rob from the rich and give to the poor. While another Aussie, Kate Blanchett, plays his love interest, Maid Marian.
My name is
We've seen Russell the gladiator, Russell the eccentric mathematician.
Find a truly original idea.
And now it's Russell Crowe, Robin Hood. Russell says it's more than just a story about a hero in green robbing from the rich and giving to the poor.
It's a huge part of English-speaking people's history, Robin Hood, you know, possibly the oldest living story in the English language.
What's Robin Hood without his maid Marian? She's played by Kate Blanchett.
My first day on set was shooting a flaming arrow, and it's all been uphill from there.
Responsibility steps up a bit here because he's not only the star of the movie, he's also the producer.
It was my natural thing to worry about things anyway, you know, because that's what, you know, I care about things. But now I have to officially care about things.
But a lot of that tension eased with the visits from the family.
You look great, Bear. You ready to go into battle?
3-year-old Tennyson seems to have inherited the acting gene.
Good sword,
It's a
isn't it?
good sword.
Yeah.
Do you know how to use it? Yeah. Can you show us a little?
You're asking for it now. You are so asking for it.
The movie will be released in May of next year. Robert Penfold, 9 News, Los Angeles.
Showbiz legend Liza Minnelli is back touring Australia for the first time in 20 years. In Sydney today, the 63-year-old talked of her love of meat pies, Bondi Beach and Australian men. And she appears determined that this trip won't be her last.
Why? Why on earth would it be the last time?
You could come back?
Well, you're planning on me dying? Forget it.
The tour begins on Friday with 2 sold-out shows at the Sydney Opera House. Let's take a look now at what's making headlines in tomorrow's national press for you. And the Australian claims the federal government's been forced to expand the immigration detention centre on Christmas Island to cope with increased numbers of asylum seekers. The Daily Telegraph reports on a new lead in the murder of businessman Michael McGurk. Police are hunting for 2 men in suits seen strolling away from McGurk's home minutes after he was shot dead. In Melbourne, The Age reports the Brumby government is set to open up Victoria's brown coal reserves for the first time for export. It's prompted claims the government is putting money ahead of responsibility to cut greenhouse gas emissions. Brisbane's Courier Mail captures the storm front as it hits southeast Queensland. Hail swept through parts of the region after wind gusts of up to 94 kilometres per hour. And the Financial Review says the New South Wales government is facing an uphill battle to achieve a competitive bidding process the sale of the state's electricity assets. A check now of what's coming up on the Today Show.
Thanks, Wendy. It's great to see you back. Now, tomorrow, we've got a great show, the Aussie invasion of Sherwood Forest. It's our exclusive with Kate Blanchett and Russell Crowe on the set of Robin Hood.
And there's also $15,000 cash up for grabs in the Great Cash Giveaway. Now, make sure you say this.
I wake up with today.
See, they're very magic words there, Wendy. See you tomorrow.
See you.
Ahead in 9's late news, bushfire code reds may force Victorians to evacuate days ahead of the flames. And proof mothers can pass cancer to their unborn babies. You're watching the late news. After the terrible loss of life in Victoria's Black Saturday bushfires, fire chiefs aren't taking any chances this season. Today, the head of Victoria's Country Fire Authority announced people living in danger areas may be asked to abandon their homes up to 4 days before a catastrophic or code red day.
Russell Rees has labelled the Dandenongs a dangerous place, and today work continued to clean up the area ahead of the fire season. The Chief Fire Officer says when catastrophic or code red days are predicted, Victorians will now be asked to decide whether to flee or stay up to 4 days before.
If today is Tuesday, we'll be saying Friday, for example. Parts of Victoria are looking to be in that range, and we'll describe those areas and we'll say very clearly our recommendation is to put in that plan.
The government is upgrading fire incident control centres across the state, but not all will be completed in time for summer.
We need to continue to lift our effort in relation to communications and IT.
Meanwhile, the Bushfires Royal Commission has heard half of Marysville was without water as fire raged through the town on Black Saturday. Firefighters taking part in backburning also ran out of water and were forced to flee to the local oval.
And as the victims of Black Saturday continue to rebuild, the ACCC is investigating 3 companies which have been found to have falsely claimed their fire bunkers met Australian safety standards when no such standards exist.
Here again we have a situation where the government has been found wanting. We don't have specific recommendations in relation to this.
Jacqueline Freegard, 9 News.
A new treatment could soon be available for asthma sufferers. Queensland researchers have discovered why the condition flares up when patients get a cold.
Emily Portis is one of the 2 million Australian asthmatics who dread the cold and flu season. She gets sick more than her friends, and the breathing problems always flare up.
I often have a cold, which always ends up with a chest infection a lot of the time.
Researchers now know why. A study of 40 14-year-olds found an immune system receptor called TLR7 doesn't work properly in asthma sufferers.
That might mean they'll spend a considerable amount of time off work. It might mean they'll need to go to the emergency room or even to get admitted to hospital.
Their asthma then takes weeks to calm down. With the problem now found, it's hoped a treatment comes next.
To find something that could bind onto the receptor and perhaps stimulate it.
It will probably look a bit like an asthmatic's everyday puffer and be taken when the sniffles start.
Any new drug is still at least 5 years away, but with asthma killing 400 Australians each year, experts say it will eventually be a lifesaver.
It's got the opportunity to have a major impact on the lives of people with asthma.
And if you could take something when you're first feeling affected by it, and that could potentially help it to be less severe, then that would definitely be a good thing.
Ashley McDermott, 9 News.
In the UK, researchers say they have proof cancer can be passed from a mother to her unborn baby. Doctors have studied 18 recent cases where mothers and infants shared the same cancer. In one of those cases, they say there's unquestionable evidence that malignant cells were transferred in the womb. Now, normally, a baby's immune system can recognise and destroy any invasive cancer cells from the mother, but researchers believe some cancers, usually leukemia or melanoma, can bypass the barrier. And in the US, a collection of Elvis Presley memorabilia, once owned by the president of his fan club, is set to be auctioned this week. The lot attracting most attention is a clump of the King's hair, shorn off when he went into the army in 1957.
People think that in future you could clone people from their hair. And then if you've heard recently also, people have been looking into turning Michael Jackson's hair into diamonds. We've even been contacted by those people who do that.
The hair is expected to fetch up to $12,000 US. A check now of what's making headlines around the world, and the San Francisco Chronicle is there as thousands of residents prepare for a severe weather front to hit the city. Many have started sandbagging their homes with heavy rain, gale force winds and flooding forecast. London's Evening Standard is reporting on a new transport proposal aimed at cutting congestion in London. The policy could see motorists charged £1 for every mile they drive in the city. And is this a lost masterpiece by Leonardo da Vinci? Canada's National Post says a lab has discovered the artist's fingerprint on the painting. Now, 10 years ago, it sold for $19,000, but now it could be worth tens of millions of dollars. In sport after the break, Maldivian Spring Carnival campaign over before it begins. And the Socceroos set to have a full-strength side for tomorrow's must-win clash with Oman. Maldivian, one of the favourites for Saturday's Caulfield Cup, is out of the Spring Carnival. The Mark Kavanagh-trained 6-year-old suffered a tendon tear at track work today.
It would seem the day couldn't have got any better for Maldivian. There were cuddles.
Likes me, don't you?
And there were cameras. Sadly, neither is a cure for the leg injury which has ended Maldivian Spring. And for trainer Mark Kavanagh, it came without warning.
When they finish their work, they come home, they get hosed off and they do a roll, and then we go around and check him, and there was a little bit of heat in his near side front tendon, so we immediately had it scanned, and there's a tear there, so he's out.
Maldivian's career has been one of racing's classic roller coaster rides, and not one for the faint-hearted. While he won last year's Cox Plate, his Caulfield Cup campaigns have been cursed. In 2007, Maldivian was the raging favourite, only to suffer a deep cut to his neck. This time, he didn't even make it to the barrier.
Yeah, well, that's the nature of this game. You've got to roll with the punches, Tony. It's not easy, but it's the way it is.
But Kavanagh's wretched morning didn't end there. The carnival is also over for another of his spring stars.
Kat Swissick is out for the spring too. She's chipped a joint. Well, actually both front joints this morning on the track, so hadn't been the best morning, Tony.
Tony Jones, 9 News.
Pim Verbeek is expected to make as many as 3 changes to the side that drew with the Netherlands at the weekend when the Socceroos take the field in Melbourne tomorrow night for their crucial Asian Cup qualifier against Oman. Tim Cahill and Harry Kewell will lead the attack, while spots are expected to be found for Scott Chipperfield and for Brett Emerton.
The Socceroos looked fit and ready to fire in their first run at Etihad Stadium late this afternoon, and it's just as well. The embarrassing prospect of missing the 2011 Asian Cup awaits if they lose tomorrow night.
Everybody's here. We have a good team, we have a good selection, and we have to show tomorrow.
Indeed, the Australian squad is dominated by its overseas stars. No wonder their opponents sounded a little fearful today.
We work, we work a lot on this Australian team. we try to work tactically a lot, but sometimes it's not enough.
The Socceroos sit well above Oman on the world rankings, but they're expecting the Middle Eastern side, who sit on top of their Asian Cup group, to be a handful.
We haven't performed, they have, so from momentum alone, they'll be going into this game with confidence.
Etihad Stadium itself has undergone a dramatic transformation for the game. A rectangular seating configuration has been put out, bringing soccer fans closer than ever to the action.
The players have welcomed the more intimate setting.
I like the idea of bringing the seats in. I think we're all used to that in Europe, having the crowd a lot closer to the field.
Now all they need to do is give them a win. Lisa Andrews, 9 News.
And the future of Brisbane Roar coach Frank Farina still hangs in the balance this evening. He fronted the club's directors last night to explain the circumstances surrounding his arrest for drink driving on Saturday morning.
Frank gave his explanation, was brutally honest, and the board appreciated the fact that Frank was open and honest. An announcement on Farina's future is expected tomorrow.
Kirk Gidley, Nathan Hindmarsh, Billy Slater and Brett White have all passed fitness tests today and will board the flight to Britain on Friday for the Kangaroos Four Nations tour. Meanwhile, fierce rivals White and Justin Hodges have vowed to put their origin unpleasantness behind them for the good of the Australian side.
Justin Hodges and Brett White are Kangaroo teammates today, but it's hard to imagine Hodges will put these origin scenes out of his mind in a hurry. Hodges was so fired up, he wanted to take the fight over the touchline, but now he says he can be mates with White.
In a different game to where we are now, so, it's been a long time, it's passed, we've moved on.
White's hoping Hodges isn't as fired up anymore.
I hope not. Have you spoke to him?
He says it's all in the past.
It was a while ago under, different circumstances, so, I don't think that's not going to come to affect anything.
But White shouldn't relax too much. Hodges says it'll be on again when they're no longer teammates.
Worry about that next year, we play Origin. I'm pretty sure it's going to be back again, so, but that's just Origin footy.
No problems in this relationship, even though Brett Morris said he should be in the side to replace Israel Folau because he's a specialist winger and his brother Josh is a centre.
Mate, he said you shouldn't be in the side, he's a specialist.
I didn't say that. He's got the early jab in, so I'll let him run with that one.
What did you say?
I'll just joke that he's a centre, not a winger. Joked.
And all the players with niggling injuries trained today, including Nathan Hindmarsh. According to team physio Tony Ayub, they're all fit and ready to tour. Danny Weidler, 9 News.
And the Wallabies were putting on a united front today following suggestions relations had soured between coach Robbie Deans and senior players. Sterling Mortlock says he knew a leadership shake-up was on the cards and is comfortable with Rocky Elsom taking over as captain ahead of the next World Cup.
I was really keen to try to lead this tour, and I've stated that. The reality is I totally understand the logic and the reasoning behind selecting a new captain.
And Leighton Hewitt remains on track to finish the year in the world's top 20 after a comfortable first-round win at the Shanghai Masters. He cruised past big-hitting American John Isner in straight sets. Hewitt was ranked 108th at the start of the year and is currently number 23 in the world. Still to come, the latest in finance. Janie Seal with all the national weather details for you. And a would-be child abductor meets his match. Turning to the financial markets now, and in Britain, the FTSE is flat at mid-session, up less than 2 points. And our market bounced back into positive territory today. As you can see, the All Ords rose 44 points. The miners and the banks were stronger. BHP Bulletin was up 35 cents, Rio Tinto 89. Westpac gained 47 cents, while the Commonwealth rose more than $1 today. The good fortune, though, didn't spread to Woolworths, down 16, and Telstra eased a little, 1 cent there. Onto commodities, and gold is stronger this evening, while oil is trading at $74.30 a barrel. And taking a look at the currency markets, one Australian dollar is worth 90.89 US cents tonight, 81 yen, 57.5 British pence, 61 euro, and $1.23 in New Zealand. Now, Janie Seal has all of tomorrow's weather details.
We have a deep low which is slowly going to move past that southeastern corner during Wednesday. It's whipping up some cold winds in from the southwest, and we've also got a front which is just going to move across into that border region of New South Wales and Queensland. The trough, which did provide some severe storms on Tuesday afternoon, will just push through to the northern parts, and this high will be the main feature for the western side of the country. So if we have a look at those temperatures, we can see some fine and sunny conditions through central and western parts. Beautiful sunny week for Perth, 24 degrees, and some more wintry, showery weather in that southeastern corner. Sydney, expect your winds to be as strong as Tuesday. Now, as we head into Thursday, those winds will start to become a little less strong as that low moves towards New Zealand. We'll still have some showers, though, and some cold conditions, and a few afternoon thunderstorms once again through the northern parts, including Darwin. Those winds coming in from the north, so temperatures right up to around 27 degrees if you are in Perth, and there are those showers in that southeastern corner. But Brisbane, a nice sunny one, 31 degrees. And then last but certainly not least, as we head into Friday, we can see that high really starting to push even further towards the east, so that will help to clear the showers and the winds. Still a little bit, though, in that southeastern corner. Once again, fine in the west, and those temperatures will be very, very warm. 29 degrees, 21 and cloudy, no rain for Sydney, and just a few showers in that southeastern corner. But it looks like Canberra clearing up, Cairns 33, and Alice Springs, you're heading for a top of 29 degrees.
And finally, parents may want to race out and enrol their kids in martial arts classes after this next story. 13-year-old Christopher Pikus was riding the bus when a man tried to abduct him. But thanks to his karate skills, he managed to see the attacker off.
The resemblance is uncanny. 13-year-old Christopher Pikus, the karate kid from Preston's, whose martial arts manoeuvres have done a lot more than earn him world championship titles. He was on a bus home from school when a man tried to abduct him.
I put my hands up straight away and told him, please let me go, I don't want to fight. I haven't done anything wrong to you, so just please let me go. And he was like, no, you're coming off with me.
But Chris's fists of fury swung into action.
And he's pulling me, and I've gone back into kakutsarach, which is a stance, and done an open hand block, which is called sotoke, and pushed him away.
His father hates to think what could have happened if Chris hadn't been able to get away.
Thank God with the training he's had in previous years, it, like to say, saved his life.
Police are still searching for Chris's attacker. The man hasn't been seen on the bus since, but officers are conducting routine patrols and reviewing CCTV footage. In the meantime, Chris is continuing to focus on his main goal.
Yeah, my ultimate dreams are like to be starring of action movies like Karate Kid.
And with just a year until he gets his black belt, surely he's the obvious choice if they ever make another sequel. Chloe Bigali, 9 News.
And that is the late news for you this evening, but you can keep up to date through our website, and that's at 9msn.com.au/news. I'm Wendy Kingston. Thank you for your company. Good night.